Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am in the company of a woman that is super inspirational, and I love being with her, and her name is Linda Perry. Linda, thank you for joining us, and would you share with everybody what you do today before we dive into our conversation? What is your business?
Absolutely. So I am a mindset coach and business strategist for business owners, corporate executives, and I work with a bunch of attorneys and creatives, and I really help them move beyond the plateaus and get to the higher ground that they're trying to reach.
Yeah, and you are on your way to leveraging your business, and I would love to have you share with us. So we met about a year or so ago, and would you share with everybody here today, what was your situation like? What was working, but also what was not working? What required a change?
I think we all reach that point in our business where we know what we're doing, we love what we're doing, but it stops being sustainable because we keep hitting those bumps. I teach people exactly what I was reaching, and I really recognized that I had hit a plateau and that I was stuck. And I was at this crossroads of, do I want to develop this and leverage more, or do I just want to keep it where it's at? And I'd interviewed you for my podcast, yeah. And you asked me an important question. And I think that really got me thinking, where do I want to take my business? You asked me, what's next? What do I really want to do with my business? And I realized I hadn't answered that very well. And so I took a deeper dive into your book, actually, Leverage, and I had realized that I had some potential to grow my business without killing myself, with really taking everything that I had learned and recognizing that there were pieces I was still missing, and there were pieces that could help me function better and serve people so much better. And so I was at this point where I said, okay, yeah, it was the greatest question anyone asked me in a while.
Wow. I would love to unpack some of the pain points that were there before, because there are some people who are experiencing some of the same frustrations, struggles, and challenges that you were, and somehow they may think it's just them, and that there's something wrong with them, as opposed to, this is normal. Do you remember what it was like a year ago? Like, how specifically were you being challenged? Was it that you were overworking or doing everything yourself or too involved? What did it look like for you to not be as leveraged as you wanted to be?
I think I had no concept of what it really meant to build a team, to build a model of growth that actually could work in a way that aligned with my own vision. I think the problem is there's so many people who tell you to scale by, just do a group program.
Yeah.
Or just hire a VA. And I think what I recognized after working with you is that there's multiple ways of scaling that we haven't even really thought about that may align better with our services than the gurus say, right? There are better ways to build a team than just hiring who your friend says is the greatest virtual assistant, right?
Yeah.
But they may not be right for you. And what I also learned was that wasn't actually the right first hire for me. And so I think what I was struggling with was I had this whole toolbox of information, but I don't think that I ever got to factor myself into it and what really works to leverage my business and what were the levers to pull. I think that was also the first biggest takeaway is there's so much to do, right? I have really a great concept of marketing. I'm always out there. I'm visible. It wasn't that piece, but I wasn't sure what wasn't working. And I think as we have, I've been in this program a year, as we continue to pull those levers, I'm learning each step of the way where there's been gaps. And as I fill the gaps, it's not as if I'm having to do more. It's just I actually have been able to let go of things and get a little bit more objective about what levers I do need to pull in order to leverage my business to the next level.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to something that a lot of women at six figures, one of the concepts that, as you know, I talk about is what got you to six figures is actually not at all what's going to get you to seven figures. So I think a lot of women use this formula that they've been using since they were making, 5, 10, 15,000 a year. And they're using those same principles, those same formulas as at six figures and wondering why it's not working in the same way. And I think we get to this place where we start thinking something's wrong with us because what used to work isn't working, or we just don't have the time for it or the energy for it anymore. And so there's this state of, I want to say confusion, because confusion can seem like a negative thing, but there's this place of, wait, like, now what? And do I want, if the hustle that got me to six figures is what's required to go to seven figures, I'm not sure if I want that.
Yeah. And I think I'm good at hustle. Like, I'm really good at hustle. I was taught how to hustle early in life. And, that my former life, I was an attorney. That whole industry is about hustle. But I realized I was also at a point in my life that wasn't going to work. And I think as women, we do find ourselves at various points, and it depends on whether we have to take care of children. And I had actually reached this point where my children are starting to be on their own completely. And I didn't want to hustle any longer. Right. And, a year ago I was living in Colorado, and now I'm living in Portugal, right? That's a huge difference. And recognizing that my business was here to actually serve me in a way is really powerful. And so I think there's been some major mindset, I'm a mindset coach, but there's been some major mindset shifts within me about what's possible for my business. And I do think we have to do all of the things, but I've learned doing less sometimes is smarter. One of the things too I really loved that has happened as a result of this last year that you really helped me with was redefining what I do in a way that feels super clear to me. And it's funny because as I share that message over and over, it really keeps resonating with others. And it was just after a simple conversation we had on a call. And I think we get so caught in the weeds of what we think we know, what we think we have to be doing, how we think we have to be talking. What Leverage has been able to open up is really almost like it pull up a little bit to see my business with a lot more clarity.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think a lot of people think they can be weeding the garden and also planning the whole garden at the same time. And what I've learned is there are some days that we actually need to get out of the office and be in the company of other entrepreneurs to really question. We've all heard the concept of working on your business rather than in your business, but getting out for 2 days every quarter, having each week, no longer than 6 days, no longer being, not being longer than 6 days away from the strategy and the community and the masterminding that we need to get through the challenges and into a bigger way of showing up. It's really transformational. I really appreciate that you've already touched on the doing less better. That's the whole point of Leverage. And for those of you who are just joining us, perhaps for the first time, the concept of leverage is where you can pull one of the levers, like Linda is talking about, whether it's team or systems or changing your business model or creating some accountability in your team so they shoulder more of the responsibility so you don't have to. It's doing less better. It's like, okay, but it's about being more strategic rather than whack-a-moling your business, rather than putting out fires, rather than being so reactive. It's saying, okay, I'm going to put a pause button on all these things that are actually not that important. And I'm going to use my time, instead of reacting, on focusing on exponential growth activities. So Linda, I'd love to know, and we'll connect again because I like checking in every once in a while just to see what a day in the life of a woman leveraging her business looks like, not just in the end, but in the thick of it. I'd love to know what you've implemented so far. You touched on team and getting the right person. You've touched on your marketing positioning and who you are in the marketplace. Also, you're leveraging your marketing message, so you are attracting more of the people that are your ideal clients. What are you working on right now to leverage your business and scale it even further so you don't have to work so much?
There's a couple of things. I spent a little bit of this year pulling back because I felt as if some of the things I was doing really needed some reevaluation. And a great place to really brainstorm some of that has been the pods. I want to sort of note on those things because you did talk about how we check in and you're never far away from someplace. But the pods have been really instrumental for me to think about what is it that I need to be working on, a place to check in so that there is some level of accountability because we all work alone half the time. And so that's been really important. But what I'm working on right now is what are a few things I've implemented. I definitely love the way I spend my time. I used to always block business building time, but there is the exponential growth activities versus the money growth activities. Mm-hmm. So that I'm very clear on what is the activity bucket that I'm working on so that I know, okay, today is a money growth block, there is an exponential growth. And I actually am spending a lot more time on things like that. List building, getting new people into my sphere, relationship building. Those are the things that are allowing me to step further into leveraging my business. I've also am working on corporate coaching, which allows me to then approach businesses and work with larger groups. And from there, I know we're going to build what we talk about as an associate model. So building my own team of people who can do what I do. Yeah. So much of the resistance that many business owners have, and we hear it like in our groups all the time, who can do what I do? And while I understand that I'm in a service business, people come to me because I'm so direct or whatever that may be. But I know that as I keep building this out, there's only so much time I can have where I show up. So it is learning to trust that I can find those people who can implement those pieces. So those are some of the things that I'm working on. I feel like right now I'm in what's going to be an acceleration mode. So everything that we worked on year one, I think that now that I've laid some foundation, I'm about to hit a little bit of the fast forward button and see how quickly I can start to leverage in this second year.
Yeah. So when I used to teach leverage from the stage, I would actually kick off my high heels in the front of the room. And I would show our members that if I were to jump from where I was standing forward, I could only jump maybe a few feet. But if I ran by, like if I stepped back and ran, so taking a step back in your business and just evaluating everything and then started doing a little run before you leap, you can go 3 times the distance. And I love this idea that we're listening to you share is not just jumping fully into making the changes, but really evaluating and saying and questioning everything. Is this the right path? Do I need to be doing things differently? And that's what you're doing. So you're changing your business model, less about the Linda Perry show, right? And more about Linda Perry's process, her methodology, her intellectual property, her mastery, which then can get documented, train associates so that you can go, instead of 1-to-1, you can go 1-to-many, which is about increasing your impact. And as a result, increasing your revenues exponentially. And here's the beautiful thing that I'm getting even just under the sentence is you creating a business model that eventually can even live without you, can be sold down the line for millions if you ever wanted to, can become your retirement, can be passed on, or just it can become a legacy that lives on in a way that doing things one-to-one isn't.
Yeah.
That's that whole idea. So where are you headed? So you're implementing all these things. Your business has grown, even though you've taken a step back to make all those changes. Where will you be at the end of the year? Where will you be? What's next? Again, like asking you that question now from a leverage perspective. What's next for the next 18 months for you? Where will you be then?
I mean, it's an exciting thought to think about, but one of the things I keep seeing is really just focusing my time on what I love to do, which is working with groups, facilitating groups, showing up in the places I want, and having a full team being able to support that. I hear so many business owners talk about how much they hate the selling piece. I mean, I love it, and I see that having that process and having somebody else maybe do that, support the facilitation, being able to work with companies that really are excited about learning how to use mindset as the tool for their own leveraging. That's where I'm really excited to be in 18 months, and really just able to take my Fridays off like I have to travel. I mean, there's a reason I moved to Europe, and it is so that I have my weekends to experience travel and live a life that is fully formed as a result of my business. And that's what I really see.
Yes. And this whole idea of, and we talk about this in year 2 of the program, this whole idea of setting up your business so that you can have it all. And I think we create our businesses. We start off saying, I want to make my own money and I want freedom. And then when we get to 6 figures, virtually everybody, it's the opposite.
Right.
We are so stuck in the day-to-day of the business because we haven't fully leveraged a team, or at least the team we had got us to 6 figures, but won't get us to multiple 6 and 7 figures. We haven't fully leveraged the systems. We haven't fully leveraged a scalable business model that is focused on process rather than personality. But once we do all of these things, we get our time back. And then our business works for us and has us live this ideal lifestyle that seems a bit dreamy from the other side.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think that I'm original, like that I get to somehow have this life. I think it's available for more of us than we think.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I was able to take away from this first year. If you leverage in the way that you take yourself a little bit out of the equation, you actually get more of what you want.
Exactly. Well, I always love to hear if there was some resistance to join the program. Was there a part of you that was like, I don't need it, or I don't have time, or any of those? What came up for you? Would you share it with us? And then how did you overcome that resistance?
As a mindset coach, as a strategist, there's the whole story of, I don't need this. I mean, I got this, right? Like, I got
it. Yeah.
I got it. I already know this. And I think, am I investing in something that is just going to repeat what I've already learned along the way? So many of us take those business courses, masterminds, whatever it is to get us to 6 figures. And I wondered, is this going to be different, right? It's an investment. And it was something that I actually was being pretty careful about, because there had been programs that I had been disappointed in. So I had resistance. And so I definitely heard that piece of it. So, and then there's the money mindset that even I, as a coach, deal with. And so those were the pieces that I wondered, is this going to be quote unquote worth it? And I can happily say yes, but that is what I was faced with at the beginning, for sure.
How did you overcome it? And or what are the things about this program as an alternative to everything else that's out there that really gave you the results you were not able to get elsewhere?
I really liked all the different touch points. For me, it's almost less about what's on the platform, which is almost a reverse of most programs. Most programs are all about like, what's the content in the platform? That's what's going to get you ahead. I'll be honest, that has been like the smallest piece for me. It has been those 2-day, the innovators. It's really been those to leverage days that we have, all of those, the question and answers, the pods. It is showing up for all of those pieces that creates the momentum that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And
that community of other women business owners, that it's priceless.
It's huge. I mean, we had our pod this past Monday, and we all rallied around one person because they really needed it. I didn't need as much actually this week, and so, but we all rallied around. Whereas last month, I needed some support to make a decision about something that I wanted to invest in, and really got the help. And I'm not good at asking for that kind of support, but it is a group of peers. It is a group of people who you get to watch the people ahead of you and know what's coming. You get to listen to sage advice, and there isn't that competition that you sometimes hear of. It's not comparison. That's not what's focused on here. It is really truly about what do you need and how do we move you past that point. And it's been wonderful.
Yeah, I really do believe it takes a village to get to multiple 6 and 7 figures, because in isolation there is so much self-doubt. And when we can be in community of people we trust, and understanding that the culture is of a rising tide lifts all boats. If you do well, I do well. If she does well, you do well. Then this is where the extreme generosity comes in. And this like really caring family, when you have that in business, which is certainly not the norm, you can be a common person who creates uncommon results. And that's really valuable. What would you give as we wind down as a piece of advice to somebody who's listening to this, who is perhaps where you were before in that questioning phase, wondering if it's really worth it to grow? What would you say to her?
Oh, I would say take the leap. I think we hold back for so many reasons. We come up with all the reasons why we can't. I would love for somebody to really think of all the reasons they can, because I think what's available is really a great place for women to be fully supported and get some really valuable tools. This isn't fluff. I mean, there's real tools that you can use to actually take your business to the next level. It is not the same cookie cutter material that you're going to see out there about, just market yourself more or just show up on LinkedIn or whatever it is. It's that there's no prescription that like that in here. And I think that's invaluable.
Thank you so much. Wise words, invest in yourself. Get the tools in the community you need and the mindset. Thank you, Linda, so much for sharing this part of your journey with you on your way to 7 figures. And thank you for the inspiration you've given to those who were listening today. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.